7 o'clock, April 5th, 2022. My name is Kathy Barnard, and I'll introduce the rest of the planning board members. To my left is Doug Breskin. Next to Doug is Von Dugan, and then Peter Goodwin. Mike Hodder is the vice chairman. To my right is John Thurston and Brad Harriman, who is the representative from the Board of Selectmen, and Julie Jacobs, who is an alternate. We have one public hearing tonight, and so let me read that into the record. Jorge Israel Lara Hidgo, I'm sorry about that, 14 Union Street, tax map 217-081, case 2022-04. This is for a site plan review for a restaurant addition and outside seating. And so you're going to present it, right? And, you know, if you'll explain to us about the parking, and I mean, we know that you don't have any, except for the two residential spaces, and why you want to continue to use this one. And then if you'll talk about the covering over the patio that you're planning, and then the addition, okay?
Sure.
All right.
So my name's Tony Fallon Architecture, and I did cook up just late in the afternoon a letter of intent, which helps clarify the intent of what we're about here. I'm not sure if I can you still hear me here?
He'll catch it.
I'm sorry?
Keep talking, he'll catch it.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I'm trying to avoid the feedback. So I'll just, there's a letter that I cooked up just reviewing the intent here. So I'll just read it for the record. Planning board members, thank you for your service, and thanks for also considering this proposal by the Lira family for their El Centenario restaurant across the street from Town Hall. The key and vital proposal is to transfer the status of the outdoor front dining area from a temporary situation to an ongoing permanent permitted resource. For this summer, the proposal is to keep things as they have been over the last 2 summers, with the existing blacktop paving, planters, tables, table-based umbrellas, chairs, and rope lights. Of course, plants in the planters, too. So, in the near future, when the financing is lined up, we are proposing that this front dining patio gain a decorative concrete surface and a motorized louvered pergola with rolled-down windscreens. So that would be in some year going forward. The latter will replace the table-based umbrellas and allow for pushing the usability of the patio into the shoulder seasons of spring and autumn. This arrangement will also allow for usability when it gets, very windy and a strong rain, where umbrellas can be a little bit tricky and not very serviceable. This resource won't be used in the wintertime because the pergola is not set up to sustain snow loads, so it'll just be left in the open position for the winter, letting the snow fall in. We anticipate the lighting for this future motorized louvered pergola would be interior to the pergola and hence interior lighting. Additionally, when the financing affords in the near future, we propose to expand the kitchen in an addition and modestly expand the dining area into what is the current kitchen. This kitchen addition is proposed to be a wood-framed 1-story addition with clapboards that are non-combustible and a flat roof with white EPDM membrane. There are no new windows proposed in the addition area. Code precludes any windows in the north wall to its proximity to the property line. And the other 2 walls of the kitchen are cooking lines and walk-in coolers and freezer units. The addition will only modestly be visible as an extension of the current one-story kitchen looking along the north wall from the street. It won't be visible from any other public angle. We propose that the same type of rooftop vent for the cooking line be provided along the west wall over the cooking line. It's currently a mushroom upward acting kitchen exhaust vent. We propose the same thing, just in a different location. We propose 2 inline parking spaces and a service yard making up the balance of the property. For reference, there's a stray note on the bottom left of the plan. We were cycling through a number of options. We had looked at a rear deck as well for dining, and that unfortunately that note is still on there, but there's no deck on the back. There was, just so you know, there's a thing in the application process of talking about ADA. So when we get into actually doing the pergola and expanding the kitchen, there'll be some modest modifications for ADA. It'll be very easy to attain since we have 2 doors at grade. And if I can, I'll just kind of walk you through looking at the plan here. So this is the existing indoor area. This is currently the kitchen. And this is the bar and dining. The proposal is to move the kitchen back here. And then this is part of the kitchen, walk-in freezer, walk-in cooler. Couple of parking spots, front to backs. Exit stair, just for the kitchen. The restaurant, indoor restaurant, will have this existing door in a little bit different location. And then this door will be made a touch wider and gain an airlock vestibule with electric operators and that kind of thing. Again, that's not this summer, that's in a future summer when we have more things going on. For this summer, it's just pretty much what you see across the street currently. Planter here, planter here, planter here, planter here, and then tables and the rope lights and the hot top paving. And the
You can pick the microphone up out of the holder.
Just take the mic out if you want.
Easier said than done, I guess, right?
I always like the word just. And so this is looking, if you're coming from Main Street, South Main Street, and walking down Union, this is pretty much what you see now. The only addition is this is the future pergola here. And then I included this picture of some other installations so you can get an idea of it. Here's the rolled down windscreens that can be brought down, if it starts to get windy, in the shoulder season. They want to try to, get into some 50, 40 degree, dining opportunities. So these, it can be closed for rain and open for sun, and then just adjusted a little bit here and there. So this is the view if you were going towards Main Street, up Union with Town Hall on your left. This is just all that you can really see of the addition. So the existing kitchen is here. It's just this little, I've got an arrow from here to here showing that's the addition of the kitchen. So visually from the street, there's pretty much nothing different except for the pergola. And then if you do go back into the non-public area, this is the existing one-story kitchen. This is the apartment above. And so we add on here and here, and these steps are right here.
And the steps go into the new kitchen?
I'm sorry?
They go into the new kitchen, the steps.
The staff this would be the staff only, this would
Yeah,
be.
right, to the new kitchen.
But as far as exiting for the public, This would be the main entrance. This would be mostly staff used, but it would be a second emergency exit for the dining area inside.
Okay. All right, so that's it then? Yeah. Okay, all right.
That's it in a nutshell, but and happy to answer questions.
Okay. Questions? Go ahead, Peter.
I'm looking at this canopy or shade area, which to me ends up being very out of place with everything else in the area. I don't believe there's anything similar in the town of Wolfeboro. And I wonder whether that is appropriate or how it could be made to be appropriate if it is, quote, needed in this particular construction.
I guess I can't point to 20 other arboretums, pergolas, those kind of things here. I can point you to a similar thing that was done at Hampton Beach, just as a way to provide shade. The task at hand is to allow people to dine outside and not be concerned about, sun being too bright, and to be able to be, shaded from the rain. Certainly, this is akin to a trellis, and trellises are a very normal kind of a thing that this doesn't have plants growing all down through it. Is a little bit different, but I think that as far as an architectural element, I think it has...
This huge white structure is not what is typical in Wolfeboro.
If I can remind my colleague, the name of the restaurant is El Centenario, and it's maybe typical of a restaurant named El Centenario serving the kind of food that a restaurant named El Centenario would serve. May not be typical of a restaurant that would serve the kind of food that we're used to in Wolfeboro, but that does not necessarily mean that it shouldn't be just because it's different.
My suggestion is that the color of it is perhaps completely different. I understand that that's how things are served, but...
I'm sorry, what was it?
The color of this white structure out in front over here is different from what is in town, and perhaps the color could be changed to make it more appropriate.
Oh, yeah, we're not proposing a specific color at this time. I mean, I would think if anything it would be, I would propose something colorful, akin to the Latino and Irish protocols. So, but that wasn't the intent. This is just a picture out of a catalog that I was trying to help visualize. It's effectively a trellis. A trellis, I can't picture one currently, but it's a standard architectural element.
The large white band across the top of the white one is the roll-down shade partway down, correct?
Yeah,
It would look more like the other two examples on the bottom.
Yeah, this would be the typical look here. This is just showing you that, okay.
Because I agree to that extent. If that was the standard facade, that looks like a parking garage. Yeah.
That is much more Wolfeboro than this white structure, which just seems out of place.
Yeah.
It's like my large house on West Pond last night.
Hey, Tony, is this a permanent structure?
It would be, yes.
Can
It
you
wouldn't
talk-
be used all 12 months, though.
Right. Can you talk about the snow load and the snow removal bits, or does it just snow down in there and you leave it?
I think that's what they did this past winter.
Yeah.
Right.
It says in the narrative, Julie, that it's not going to be, the space will not be used in the winter. And the
Right.
pergola is like my finger, so the snow will just go
I know.
through and they'll sweep it away.
Well, that's it. Are you going to sweep it away? Is it just going to pile up on the tables?
Well, just ask the question, okay?
That was
I
it.
guess I'd have to, did you guys the snow just stay there over the last couple winters? Yeah. I mean, I think it would be a reasonable place for, stockpiling snow. I mean, if it's an unused big area, if we were out in a regular planning review, we had an area that is heavily used in the summer and not used in the winter, it would be a reasonable place to stockpile snow. So I myself, I don't see that's necessarily a problem.
How many additional patrons would be allowed inside?
Can you speak into your
Additional
microphone?
patrons would be included in the inside seating plan?
Down here we showed there's 51 inside, 68 outside, 118 altogether.
Yeah, what was it? How many additional?
Well, that's the thing. I think they're rated, if I remember right, in talking, currently they have a capacity of 47, if I'm not mistaken. So we're not really adding a ton of seating inside. Am I remembering right? Yeah, so it's 47 they have a assembly occupancy or permission from Tom Zadi for 47 patrons.
You show, I assume these are the two cars for the inline parking at the rear of the structure?
Mm-hmm.
And I assume that access is through the adjacent lot?
It is through the adjacent lot that Kurt DeWilder owns. That's currently how, there's an existing apartment over. That's the two parking spaces for the existing apartment. So all we're changing is instead of a side-by-side parking arrangement, we're changing it to a front-to-back.
And is there any easement or right-of-way in the deed to ensure continued access?
Conversations about that. It hasn't been formalized, but yeah, so they're in conversations with Kurt to formalize what's been a long-term, gentleman's agreement.
Go ahead.
A couple questions. Tony, does your client have a timetable for the pergola and a timetable for the kitchen?
Okay, summers of 23 and 24, pergola first, kitchen second.
The summer of 23 and the summer of 24 for the pergola? So for the pergola, 23 and 24 for the kitchen?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Will there be a light on the external exit?
Sure.
On the external set of stairs going down where the parking area is, will there be a light over that doorway?
It would be a roof over it. I have to provide a roof over the stair. So there'll just be a downward acting light, in the ceiling of the
Okay.
roof.
Okay. And you're going to relocate the external vent?
Yeah,
Can you show where it is now, where it will be, and if it'll be any bigger?
currently, it's hard to see. Right now, it's about here in this sketch, and it's going to move to here.
Point on the site plan.
Oh, on the site plan? Oh, okay, sure.
So the vent's there.
Right now, it's on the roof about here, and we're going to put it about here, middle of the cooking line.
Okay. And will it be any larger than it is currently?
That's to be determined. I don't expect it to be that much larger, but, that's some engineering to go. This hasn't been done as yet.
Okay. Thank you, Tony.
Is this kitchen a flat roof?
I am planning, a flat roof out here. Currently, this is a fairly shallow, it's probably a 2 to 3 pitch. And since I had an existing deck that I was trying to hang on to for the apartment above, it just, but I could bring it up as a 2 or 3 pitch up to the railings. And I thought that it would be simpler to just propose it as a flat roof since it's not really visible to, anybody in the public anywhere. But that's a possible alteration if,
Wait a minute, this is a outdoor seating area, is that what you're saying?
no, we're talking, the question was for over this
Yeah.
addition.
Right,
I'm proposing a flat roof, which
Yeah.
of course isn't really flat, it's a 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch per foot. There's always a slope to a roof. And the reason being is when I'm working with, actually there's twofold. I have a deck up here, it's a resource for the apartment.
yeah, right.
And if I brought up a 2-pitch or 3-pitch or 4-pitch roof, I was concerned that I might not be able to hang on to that deck for the apartment, or make it less nice. But also, just working with the more commercial exhaust kind of things, and there might be a heating and air conditioning unit on the roof. That's. But there won't. This is going to be the main thing. Is the exhaust here? The mushroom that we're going to move from this location to this location. It's just a little bit easier to work with that on a flat roof. So that's why I thought I'd at least propose it that way, since it's not, out on the street and visible to anybody.
So the deck is actually going to be removed from the apartment, right?
No, the plan is to keep it.
Okay,
Well,
so
I
it's
mean,
going to be
it may be removed
expanded?
during construction,
You're- right.
build a flat roof, put the deck back on.
Yeah, okay. all
Sure.
right.
Tony, is there any change in the fuel, the gas? Did it get moved anywhere? Is the tank still in the same place?
In the what?
Gas
In the propane tanks?
tank, yeah, did they get moved, or are they still going to be easily accessible?
I'm not even remembering where they are. Oh, okay. So, yeah, so they would probably wind up back, in this service yards at some point.
And they're above ground still? Above ground still?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, what about trash removal? You going to do anything about that?
It's currently, this is the area where that is managed. They currently have cans and those kind of things. It's more over here currently, but it'll just kind of gravitate over into this area.
Okay, is that parking okay for the residential apartments? Because it's,
Yes, yes. The requirement is 2 stalls for an apartment.
Yeah, I know, but you can't get to one if one,
Well, it's only one person's apartment. It's not 2 family, so it would be the same family. So they'd get in their own way.
well, it's a requirement, isn't it, to,
They just need 2 stalls. It doesn't say they have to be side by side. Just
okay.
They dimensionally have to be there.
all right, that was my question. Go ahead, Peter.
In the waivers, it says snow storage areas, snow storage areas exist on property, no change in site plowing proposed, snow behind restaurant is plowed as needed for apartment parking. That seems to be not, it may just be grandfathered in, but if there's no snow storage area but you're plowing, where do you plow to?
The only, this is where most of the plowing occurs. We're talking about just removing snow, for 2 cars, and then whatever pathway we need to maintain for this stair and that stair. So I don't really see it as plowing. It would be more shoveling or snow blowing. And I think this is a reasonable, amount of space to handle that.
Okay, go ahead, John.
So the legality of getting to those parking spots is my first question. If you don't have a legal easement and the next guy sells that property next door, he could put up a fence and cut you right off.
Yeah, it's an existing situation that's ongoing.
So we're trying to allow something to go through, and to me, you haven't demonstrated that you can feasibly have the 2 parking spots, because if legally you can't get there, you can't get there. So that's my first hurdle. So I'll go through the whole list of things here that I've got. So in total, you're asking for 119 seats altogether. That's 60 cars in our parking lot. I know we've had a conversation in the past about ability to use the town garage. I know that the cooks in the Pickering House, they've vied for 50 of those parking spots when they have their events up there. You've asked for 60 parking spots out there. Tavis, how many parking spots do we have in the parking lot out there?
I have no idea how many parking stalls are in the parking lot.
John, if you look at the back lot and the front lot combined, I believe it's 51.
51. So I know that's what our town is trying to do. I want this project to go through. I love seeing it there. I love seeing the life that the place brings. I just don't know where we are going as a town to say that everybody is going to be vying for the same parking spot. That's a hurdle for me.
But that is what the regulation says,
I get
specifically for the zone.
I get that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, as a town, I don't know where we're going, because if somebody else wants to do that right next door, build another restaurant, and they're going to vie for the same parking spots, I don't know where everybody's going to park. Even tonight, when you go out there, I mean, there's nothing really going on, but, I mean, there's very few parking spots left out there. So to me, that's a concern. So the roof on the top there, the deck, what size is the deck right now?
I have not been up to measure that floor. It seems to be about a 16 by 16.
Going to stay the same size?
Yeah.
So the architectural design of the pergola in the front, have we taken any consideration into that? I don't mind the look of it. I question what I'm thinking about is the lot coverage percentage. I'm wondering where the water's going to go. I'm wondering if there's going to be any pervious surface out there. I'm wondering about the walkway in the front of that area where you've got all the people standing in the road out there. I know that when people try to come through, it's, they're all ganged up in the road out there. You can't, traffic gets blocked up. I mean, you got the planters out there. I know it's a 0 setback, but, when you push out and all the people are out in the road, that doesn't seem like a very safe situation to me. How are we going to address the water and the people in the front there? That's my next question.
This is a gutter system, I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken. I think so far we're combined storm and sewer in the town. I don't know if we have.
Say that again?
I think we're in many municipalities, you have a separate storm water system and separate from a sanitary system. But I think we're combined here. Is that right? We're separate? Okay. So if there's a storm line out there, I don't know if we have a storm line in the street.
There is.
Yeah. It's possible we should be able to tie in, with this system, but
It's possible, but you're being pretty vague here on this one again. You got all this water coming off this pergola, you got it coming off the roof area, and it's obviously going this way, and it's going to end up in the area where everybody's trying to enter this little seating area there. It just, to me, it's your design is not complete if you're not, again, the water is just gonna run it off to wherever. I mean, I'd like to see you make some effort to at least infiltrate it into the ground. Tavis?
Just if it helps, not only are there no setbacks, but the commercial zone allows commercial uses 100% lot coverage. The entire property is less than the 10,000 square feet that would trigger the stormwater regulations. So realistically, a building could be proposed that goes from the front line to the back line and to the two sidelines, if it were commercial only. The fact that it has an apartment, they require the 2 parking spots, so that's why there's still some impervious area on the property.
Okay, well,
But
then-
I'm only mentioning this to the board because there's nothing proposed that isn't in line with the regulations.
Right.
Right.
And the pergola isn't like a flat roof. It's like my
Haven't
fingers.
got to the flat roof yet.
No, what I'm saying is that there's no water runoff off of that pergola.
Well, he says when
Yes,
it,
there
when
is,
it,
Mike.
When the rain
there is.
when the rain hits the pergola, it's just going to go right down under the ground below. The pergola is not flat like my hand,
No,
it's flat like that.
if you went to the link,
well,
if you went and checked out the website, it was pretty
Just a minute.
interesting with the gutter system.
Julie, John is trying to.
Sorry,
so I'm looking at this as a full perspective here. I'm working at the front first where the water's coming off. You've got a pitch right here where all the water comes off the roof line. So that's all coming down into the walking area and landing right on top of the pergola areas. All this water comes right here and lands right on top of the pergola area. And so you're going to have a concentration of water all right there where your walking area is. I mean, just trying to point this out and figure out if this is the best system, because basically what's going to happen with that water is that's going to congregate, and you've got about 2 feet to your property line. If the property line down the side is built up, then you're going to contain all that water, or it's going to go in the bank parking lot, and then it's going to go down to the back left-hand corner where the support area is. Now we can talk about the flat roof and how that water is all going to shut off the back, and obviously that's going to go back into the backyard there, and either that's going to go into the back of the IGA parking lot, or it's going to go into the ground somewhere. I don't believe that the grate is in the back, and I don't believe that town proposes to infiltrate groundwater into our sewer system. I know we did an INI a number of years ago where we tried to minimize the amount of water that was headed to the sewer system there. So,
Well, okay, so, but that's why we have a separate storm and sanitary system. If this is I did kind of double check, this is a guttered system, so we can tie into a storm line if there's one to tie into. If not, then we're to directing it by gutters to the curb. I mean, currently, it's,
do you
for
think
the
it's
last
very
2
neighborly?
summers, we've had rain on that dining area. Agreed?
I'm sorry, I missed
For
that.
the last 2 summers, we've had rain on that dining area. Okay, and we're not proposing, certainly for the summer, not proposing to change that at all. And so that water does not pitch towards the building, it pitches out to the street, to the curb, and then it just becomes part of the water that runs down the street. And it's managed by the town of Wolfeboro storm water system, so that's normal. So we can, with the pergola, if it is a heavy rain, do crank it closed, it becomes more of a impervious roof, goes to a gutter, we can bring that down to the curb and let it go away, down the curb, just as it currently does. Now, as far as the rear roof, it'd probably be another guttered system, and it would be, I mean, according and concurrent with Tavis, I mean, this is a permitted thing. You're allowed to build 100% of the lot area. We're not doing 100%, we're less than that. So we have some pervious surface to bring a gutter down and let it work its way down into the ground.
So I'm with you. Believe me,
Okay.
I'm a proponent of this project. I'm just saying, can you guarantee us that when you build this, you're not going to have water that leaves your property onto an abutter's property?
Well, that's a state law. He's not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
So to me, I
No,
mean,
it's in our
there will
interest.
have to be provisions
I agree
made.
with you that it's in our interest too. I very much agree with you.
There will have to be provisions made then, is that what you're saying?
Well, no water that comes off the roof can land on the neighbor's property, and it's showing impervious on the sides of all three sides of the proposed addition. So water can't get to the neighbor's property. However, if the wind does take it onto the existing paved property, it's paved on all three sides of this property, it's going to go the same place the water does now when it rains.
Is there any?
I wanted to clarify one other thing. There was a discussion about the number of parking spaces that are required, and I don't agree with the number that came out. 175-139 requires for restaurants with table seating 1 per 4 seats. In this case, it would require 29 stalls with the current proposed of 119 seats altogether. It would require 12 based on the 47 seats that are there right now. That's a difference of 17. There are literally only 6 spaces on the property right now. So right now, it only has 20% of the required parking. The suggestion was that there were going to be 60 cars generated by this proposal that were going to be using the town parking lot, and
Not done yet.
if everyone parked in the town parking lot by the requirements, it would only be 30. Or 29, pardon me.
Okay, so let's move on to the next thought there that I had, is the walkway in the front of the planters when people are standing out in the road. How we, I mean, again, I don't mind creating and maximizing your lot coverage and seating area, but again, when the people are standing out there on the road, I've got an issue with that. And that's where everybody congregates out there. They're all congregated. They can't be anywhere else. I mean, maybe you can open up on the left-hand side there and say overflow. No, I mean.
Well, the current plan is, this is the waiting area currently. This is the aisle that you walk down. And this is a waiting area that they currently have. That's extant. I mean, it gets back to another, in general, there's not a sidewalk here. There's a little bit of a sidewalk, kind of a corner here, but for Union Street, it's kind of expected that on this side you're walking on the street.
Well, I've looked at the bank on the way in, and I saw that.
But this is, you're calling the congregating in the street here, but this is a reasonable sidewalk width. Yes, it is hot top pavement, but it is their property. So they have a right to have people stand along here. It's their property. And in general, in a right-of-way, the sidewalk's not even on the person's property. It's generally out in the right-of-way.
I think some of us have seen people out in the street. That's why John is bringing it up.
I understand.
It should be addressed.
Yeah.
I don't see how it could be addressed. I find this line of questioning a little bit
Well, no, it is not, because this is a safety issue.
Public safety issue is a matter for the Public Safety Department to take care of. We cannot control people who decide to walk in the middle of the road while they're waiting to get a table, and I don't see how we can expect the restaurateurs to go out there and police them either.
Okay, but it's something that we certainly should be considering.
It's part of the record and it's written into the record, but I don't think we should be holding them responsible for what public safety concerns are.
We were simply asking a question, I think, Mike.
And I was answering it.
Good, but really wasn't up to you. He was asking the applicant.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, John.
No, that's my point. So that's going to be my hang-up right there.
Okay,
All set.
okay, all right.
One question for the planner. Is there any increase in impervious surface in this new proposal on this lot?
Is there any reason?
Is there any increase in impervious surface on this proposal?
The kitchen area, yes.
Kitchen. What's currently there? What is currently there with
Square footage of the restaurant plus 7 parking stalls.
Is it pavement? Is it dirt?
I can kind of,
Is it blacktop where that kitchen is likely to be going?
Let me just say that currently this is not a hard line of the addition. Currently, there is structure out in this area. I'm just kind of cleaning it up. It is bigger than what's there, but it's not, this is not wholly new. There's a bunch of building out here currently.
So there's currently impervious surface out there.
There's currently, yeah. And then to answer your question, there is mostly dirt, but there's like some random old previous decks of some sort.
So I don't think we're talking about a really substantial increase in impervious surface as a result of the kitchen addition?
Yeah, and in fact, I could argue that what currently is a former deck here, we can take that away to become impervious because decks are, to create pervious. And then but even though we don't have to, we're allowed to have 100% impervious, but I think we can make it better, just in general.
So essentially, what is falling out of the sky on the lot right now, after you finish your renovations, will be pretty close to what's going to be falling out of the sky and landing on the ground then?
I can say that, yes.
Thank you.
Hey, could you speak to the waivers that you've requested? Just speak into the record for the waivers that you have requested from the site plan.
Could I defer to, or do you want me to do it? I can do it. Yeah, I'll read it. Second. I apologize when my computer wakes up.
I went through them all.
Well, he needs to do it for the record.
Understood. I can help
Yeah,
him if he wants.
He's going to.
I have a list of them here.
Actually, I can get it out my phone more quickly.
He's pulling up the same email that you have.
It's not the same.
Oh, okay, Tavis, do you have anything that you want to add, and do you want to say anything about the waivers?
I don't have any concern with the waivers. Functionally, the only things that are being waived are things that are not directly relevant to the project. One of them happens to be the plan size. They didn't submit the 24 by 36. Everything was done by 1117. That was actually at my request. Other waivers relate to things that were addressed, but not as prescribed by the regulations. For example, if you look at the application, it has the proposed site plan, and then it has a previous survey that was done. That was allowed instead of resurveying the property for the purpose of putting the new site plan on it, as none of the structures were proposed to increase over the property line, and those four corners are known. So in general, no, I'm not concerned with the waivers. Ordinarily, I would be concerned with removal of all of the existing parking spaces where they are already substandard for the current use, but I'm not, because it's expressly almost encouraged by the regulation to seek off-site in the case of expansion.
Okay, and at TRC, the police were there?
Police had no concern. Fire had no concern. Electric and Public Works had no concern with this. I asked Chief Zadi earlier this afternoon if he thought it would be helpful to have bollards or something more of an impediment than the planters along the road. But he said that would be more of a Liquor Commission concern than anything he could point to.
Okay,
He said from his perspective, he doesn't see any difference here than people all along Main Street in between parked cars and in and out. So even though that Main Street you have a sidewalk, people are still lined up trying to get into restaurants and creating a traffic problem. So he didn't, or a potential problem, I should say.
Okay,
He didn't see any.
What about ADA requirements?
ADA requirements, it's all existing. As Tony pointed out in his letter, there is a standard that 20% of the project cost needs to go towards ADA. So that is likely to be done with change in hardware on the doors, upgrades to the restrooms, things of that sort, so they will be in compliance with ADA. Nothing says they have to bring the project fully
Okay,
into
so the
compliance.
restrooms will be in compliance.
Yes, I believe both of them are actually in compliance now, but additional hardware and things like that count towards that 20% that ADA requires.
They will have to be in compliance with ADA. Do you think it's worthwhile, Madam Chairman, that we ask for a letter of intent to be in compliance with ADA to satisfy that particular waiver? Or just pass over?
I tried to take care of the first two waivers in the letter that I distributed, that I did in the last hour before coming here.
Yeah, I see that. And
I tried to provide the letter of intent, but also address the ADA certification. There's nothing to really certify on the ADA currently because it's existing to remain. There's no work.
is this enough
No,
for
it's
you?
when we do the work in the future, I'm certifying that I'll make it.
Don't lower the mic too much.
I'm sorry.
Okay, and so the requirements will be that these will be brought up to,
Yes, it's part of every building code to bring that up, yes.
yeah, okay.
right, then fine.
All right, that's what
I
was
do
trying
have
to
some
find out.
standard recommended conditions. There's nothing really to read into the record there, it's just as presented. It's a standard reference to the materials received. That would include the letter this evening and responsibility for recording fees and things of that sort.
Okay, is everybody all set as far as our architectural design guidelines or requirements? you feel as
One
if-
more question about the parking. Should the neighboring property change hands? I understand you mentioned a potential gentleman's agreement for access to the rear parking. Should that property change hands, what can be done to ensure continued access to the two spaces behind the subject property?
Technically, what happens is they lose the ability to occupy until they can satisfy that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I could have them come up, but they have been talking with Kurt for a long time about this, but they know that they need to make it more formal. And
Okay.
that's, watching lawyers hurry is like watching a glacier race, if I may. So, but it'll come.
Okay, again, architectural design, is everybody okay with that?
You want a motion regarding the waivers?
Yep, that would be great.
I'd be happy to move that the board grant waivers from 173-15 Cap B, 173-15 Cap E, 17 plan size, 175-15 Cap E3 A&D, and 173-15 E4 letters D, H, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, and Y.
Okay, I'll second that. All in favor of granting the waivers, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Move to accept the application as complete.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded to accept the application as complete. If you're in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, all right, we can open the public hearing now. I guess there's no member of the public here. So how do you folks want to proceed?
There's a member of the public
Oh,
over
I'm
there.
sorry.
Come up.
Excuse me, yeah.
One parking place left to get into the building tonight. Is this yours? My concern, and I know it's yours, that you be very mindful of the aesthetics of that building, the pergola, the awning, and so forth, because this building is heavily used, and that is what we look at when we exit and enter and park. So it's your call, but I think that there has to be great care in what this pergola does with this portable roof. I'm not sure just what the roof is about. And that if it in fact is going to only be enclosed in spring and autumn, I don't know if they can have one of those gas heaters out there or not, but to be clear in your conditions that it is not a permanent structure as we know it, as enclosed as a structure. It's being presented as a seasonal, open structure. And I think just because it says that on the plan doesn't mean that that is going to happen. We know how things creep along and get turned into something else after a period of time. So, and then as far as pedestrian travel around the building, if nothing else, there should be some discreet, tasteful signage giving the public direction as to where they should flow into the building. And if there is a stack-up place where people can line up, that should be designated so people know where to go. But once again, we're just trying to fit so much onto a small lot, like we did with the bank right up on the sidewalk. So whatever you can do to minimize that sort of effect is appreciated. And again, to make sure that if they want that patio to be enclosed, then say so and do it. But don't put up the pergola and then little by little enclose it year-round.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, would you like to speak to the enclosure?
I guess what I specifically like to, share is, I didn't state an obvious thing, but I think it's obvious. The whole reason for the patio is for health situations. I worked with Garwood's to put another deck out front. Having outdoor dining is the intent. It's a draw. My family started the Rexall Drugstore in Hampton Beach in 1926. Our tenant, the Sea Catch Restaurant, had all kinds of outdoor dining, and they were just slammed with business. That's what people want. So I really object to, and there's no intent here to make that a permanent indoor structure. It's not as saleable. It's not as attractive to the customer. So, and it's not as healthy given the current things. So I just don't agree with that. As far as the pergola goes, again, think trellis. I mean, trellises have been around since Rome. Plants, and you can already see they plant it up nicely. It's going to be a nice feature. And it's going to allow for people to be outside and be comfortable, but then also to allow the business owner and the customer to still dine. If all of a sudden we get 50, or not 50, a strong wind that comes in a cooler season, people aren't going to go away hungry, and they're not going to call people into work that they now have to send away because there's nothing to do. So
Tony,
I just really want to say that I think it's an attractive thing. I think it's a reasonable thing. And certainly as far as a dining customer, I know from years and years and years of our former tenants in Hampton Beach, it's where people want to dine.
Tony, if I recall correctly, you said earlier that the design of the pergola roof structure is such that it's not capable of taking a snow load in the winter and would remain open. Is that right?
If you look into the weeds, they say they can take a little bit of snow load, but the sales rep told me it takes 0. So that's why I'm sharing that with you. But again, there's no intent. They don't want to be operating that, right? I mean, and so painting pictures of intent that isn't there, I am trying to diffuse, because it's not here.
Hey, Tavis, it seems that this parking meets the requirement in the downtown area. Is that true?
The parking does meet the requirements in the downtown area,
Okay.
yes.
And the fact that the 2 parking spaces are at the rear, and that's because we have to have it for a residential use.
Off-site residential parking is not permitted.
Right.
Just because it was a question, I will bring it up again. 175, 139 off-street parking requirements for a single family, which is the only thing we have in the regs to go by for the apartment, says 2 per dwelling, may include indoor parking, serving individual units, may be stacked.
Okay, all right, thank you. As far as the rooftop mechanical, would that be taken care of when the building permit is issued for that to be enclosed or not visible, the rooftop mechanical?
Well, the proposal isn't to enclose it at all. A building permit wouldn't require it to be enclosed, but I think that's why it was.
Okay, it's in the zoning regs, so.
Right, but I think what Tony tried to do, and he can speak to it as the architect, is he
right.
moved it to the rear of the building so that it would not be, it would be less visible than it currently is. Because it's moving, the rooftop vent is going to the back of the 2-story structure.
Okay.
So it would actually look just like Hunter's rooftop equipment.
But I think what the,
Currently here, and the proposal is to
Okay.
In around the corner, yeah.
so we're only screening from the front side, we're not screening from the neighbor's side, so they don't have to look at it? Either side, Wilder or Hunter's, I mean, what's our requirement? Is our requirement for full screening?
Well, I would, this is an opinion, not a regulation. I would think putting something up high enough to screen that is going to be more of a visual interference than something that's already there, but relocated further from public view. So I would think in this case, the screening would be more offensive than the element itself.
Well, the
I also
hospital,
have a little issue with that because that is the kitchen vent. You don't want to really vent, I mean, you don't want to enclose that
Okay,
because.
it's in the regulations,
needs-
and that's why I asked him to comment on it, okay?
If you look at the second page, the site plan that was before, you'll see that the sidewall of Hunter's is right on their lot line. So screening that is kind of, why?
Yeah.
Screening for what? I don't see why you would screen a blank wall.
basically what I'm looking at is something like Huggins Hospital has, louvered vents that come up on a kitty corner angle, and then it dies off into the ground. So essentially, what it could be is it could be a 2-sided corner where it goes up, not higher than the top of the exhaust, just to shield it and make it look homogeneous.
To whom, though? To the average passerby in the street?
No, to the neighbor next door,
Who is Hunter, apparently.
It's a parking lot. The people who look at it are going to be in their cars.
Worried about
Yeah,
fire.
getting in and out. I think it's,
It seems that it has been made, there has been an improvement made. I mean, that's the way
clearly,
I look
it's
at it.
being moved further back,
Yeah.
further out of sight, being made better.
Okay, anything else?
My comment on the architectural standards, it doesn't necessarily apply, but I would think that a 3-bay structure or maybe a 4-bay structure would be the minimum spacing of the supports so that we don't end up with something that looks like that big white long span. It looks more like a girder. So it would be more in keeping with neighborhood if it looked more like what you drew.
Or like a front porch, yeah.
Yeah, like a porch. So I would just want to put some kind of condition that it remains that way. It doesn't suddenly end up looking like the upper right-hand corner picture. And it looks like you've drawn 3 bays, it could be 4 or more.
So Vaughn, what are you suggesting, that we can put it as
Suggesting-
as a condition, I mean?
You know, that it should have a minimum of the number of bays, I would call those. So something on the order of like a 10-foot bay.
So a little bit less than 20. 20 feet or so of base.
But it likely could be done visually, if not structurally.
Visually.
Right.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have to look for the appropriate panel size or a pergola panel size to achieve it. There could be a vertical element coming up out of the planter that would still provide
Yeah.
the breaking.
Yeah.
So that it resembles a porch and not a big girder like the white picture in the upper right-hand corner. In order, we would have a bay spacing of the columns supporting the beam that holds the awning of 3 or 4 bays and not the big giant girder that is in the upper right-hand
So-
corner.
So more like the bottom right than the top right.
Just to clarify, Vaughn, I think that upper right-hand picture, it looks like a girder because the blind is lowered about a foot.
But there's no column.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So it would be good to have the columns spaced, you know, maybe 3 or 4 bays. You've drawn 3, could be 4, but not less, just to make it look more porch-like.
Okay, you need to, you,
You need to say, Tony, you need to say that in the microphone.
yeah.
Sorry. Wait, you know, I think the simple way to do it is just, we'll do it according to the sketches, just number of
At
columns.
a minimum, that many columns, and there could be more.
Sure. And as far as the screening of the hood, I don't, you know, that's not that big of a, you know.
Do you have language for that condition that Vaughn is proposing?
If you'd like, I can manifest that, yes.
Yeah, but, because I think we're going to need it.
Okay, so pergola shall be designed similar to the architectural renderings as submitted with 3 or 4 bays, but no less than 3.
Does that work?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you, Tavis.
Okay, anyone else have anything? Okay,
Excuse me a sec.
I'd just like to follow up. I heard the word, it is our intention. That gives me heartburn. Our intention is to do something or not do something. I go back to the fact that on his drawing, he says that the pergola will be in use in spring and autumn. It should be clear somewhere, other than just on the drawing, that it's not intended for winter use. And
How
if
about,
it,
how
if
about,
it,
how about this? This is his letter of intent, which is part of the record. And he says, quote, "It will not be used in the wintertime since this system is not designed for snow loads and will be left with the louvers open for the winter," close quote.
well, letters have a way of getting lost, and it should be a condition, I would hope, of your approval that it is not, per the letter, it is not to be used in the winter.
It's a
If they want,
pergola.
if they want to do that, then do it. But if you make it a condition, it isn't going to get lost. It's going to be in the record. The letter can get lost. The drawing can get lost. And we're not here
Tavis.
to
I'd
witness
like to know what winter is. 3 weeks ago, it was
follow-up.
thank you. Okay, I'm going
want a motion?
to close the public hearing now. Tavis, do you want to tell us what you've got here in the way of approving? I assume everyone is in favor of that. You have some conditions that you wanted us to
again, I have
consider?
the recommended conditions from the staff review, and the 4th recommended condition based on discussion would be pergola shall be of a design as represented in the architectural renderings presented at the meeting and in the application, with 3 or 4 visual bays, but no less than 3 bays.
Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
Is that okay with the applicant? Does the applicant understand that condition?
I think that he does.
Well, let's ask him. Tony?
I thought that that's what he agreed.
Did you understand that condition, number 4, that Tavis just read?
Yeah, as far as number
Based
of
on the
bays.
based on the architectural renderings with
Right.
3 or 4 bays, but no less than 3.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, other conditions?
Yeah, I showed Tony a picture of this triangular louvered venting screen at the rooftop there to hide the backside of that hood, and seems to think that he could make a rendition of that.
Yeah, no, we can do some kind of screening of the hood. That's not that big of a deal, so.
Okay.
You want a motion to approve?
Motion has been made to approve this application with the conditions just indicated,
Which condition just indicated?
the ones that,
Okay, thank you.
What, on Suzanne's proposal for signage at the entrance
Why
to,
don't we leave that up to the applicant? They know what they're going to need. They know what their customers are going to want to see. Let them make signs however they want to make signs. What are we going to do? Are we going to specify the size and the wording of the sign?
no, we're going to encourage them to put it up so that they can keep the traffic out of the roadway.
I'm sure they probably want to do that anyway, with some kind of signage just to control their own clientele.
anyone else feel that we need signage? Okay. Any other conditions? Okay, Mike, did you make a motion?
I can.
Okay.
Be happy to move that Planning Board approve case number 2022-04, tax map 217-081, El Centenario, applicant Jorge Israel Lira Hidalgo for a restaurant addition and outside seating as stated in the project request,
Okay, should we?
with the 4 conditions as noted by the planner.
Seconded.
All right. Somebody want to make a second?
Go on,
Okay, I'm
Second.
sorry. Okay. Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Oh, okay. Okay, on to the next. Election of offices. Need to elect a chairman and a vice chairman.
Madam Chairwoman, may I make a nomination?
Okay, good.
I'd like to nominate the current Madam Chairwoman as the incoming current Chairwoman, Kathy Barnard, for chairperson.
Okay, thank you. Any other nominations? O- Okay, so does that need to be seconded?
Should
I'll
be.
second that.
Okay,
Okay, all in
Okay.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll abstain.
And 1 abstention.
Okay,
Congratulations,
Okay.
Madam Chairperson.
thank you. Okay, as far as the vice chairman is concerned, I'd like to nominate Mike Hodder as vice chair.
I'll second that.
Thank you, John.
Any other nominations? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next item is the Lakes Region Planning Commission's commissioner appointment. Roger Murray has been one of our commissioners that has been existed for quite a few years and would like to continue. It's our job to recommend to the Board of Selectmen that we would like to see Mr. Murray continue. Does Does anybody have any objections to that, or any other person they'd like to see?
I'll move this board nominate Roger Murray as one of the 2 LRPC commissioners to be recommended to the Board of Select Persons.
Okay, I'll second that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, so Tavis, what we just need to do, I think, is just send something to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll do that.
okay.
Don't we have to nominate Tavis too? Tavis?
Well, are you up for reelection?
Not really. The board appointed me last year, but never told LRPC. So I'm trying to work on the town manager, getting an email to LRPC to formalize that. If you want to make a recommendation, I'm happy
Okay.
to do that.
I'd be happy that the planning board nominate Tavis as planner to second position for the LRPC commissioner recommended to the Board of Select Persons.
I'll second that. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, so that goes to you, Brad.
Tavis, I was just going to ask you, was that, the appointment, was that to be the representative on the TAC committee?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's different than the
Well,
representative to Lakes Region Planning Commission.
no, he's,
The TAC is,
actually, I thought you said you were.
I'm both, yeah.
What?
I'm both.
Yeah, he's
Both, okay, all right.
Yeah, right, okay, very good. Okay, appointments to CIP. I've talked to all of the existing members, and they'd all like to continue. Also, Tim Cronin got in touch with me and said that he would like to be back on CIP. We have the opportunity to appoint 4 members from the public, and that would be it's 4 there with Tim Cronin. Mike mentioned that there's a provision that we adopted last year, or a couple of years ago, where we need to advertise for any member that might be interested, any citizen member.
If it's helpful, I'm willing to put together a notice for the website and get it in the paper so that people can have a letter of interest in time for the next meeting.
Good.
Okay, all right, but I'm just going to say that I've already said to the existing members that they would be considered, so this would be in addition to, okay, all right, so this will be on a future agenda.
And Madam Chairwoman, this is not on the agenda, but I can add it in as kind of an appointment to the CIP. I'd like to recommend to the board that the board appoint you and me to the upcoming CIP committee of the planning board. That's a
Okay.
motion that needs a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you, John.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, any issues? Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Lots with no frontage, we dealt with that yesterday at a special meeting. Okay, and John, you wanted to discuss the latest zoning amendments?
Yes, I attended the ZBA meeting last night to see how the board came to their decisions and how they thought about this setup. And I think the main takeaway here was that we have owners of a roadway. It's not even a roadway, it's a path. And this roadway path, noted by Tim Cronin, has been used for 72 years. And in those 72 years, it wasn't noted that that was ever upgraded. Although Mr. Cronin and Luke stayed the course and wanted to base their decisions on the facts, there were others on the board that took into consideration the the planning board's comments about the character of the neighborhood. And one of the things that I think about is I separate the four-bedroom build to just a home. And when I talk about just the home, I talk about the home as being a all-season home, and all the other homes are seasonal homes. And what we know about a permanent home is just more. More what? More FedEx, more traffic, more oil truck. And what we know about that road is that it was never used in the wintertime. And an old road like that can be consistent of pine roots, loam, a scattering of gravel here and there. And to the defense of the contractor, who was very contrite up front, he said he was going to have a lot of big, heavy trucks going in there. And that would make sense, because you would have to have a lot of big, heavy trucks in order to build a four-bedroom home. And when you think of big trucks, you think of a dump truck, 40,000 pounds plus another 40,000 pounds of aggregate.
Okay, what does this have to do with our zoning?
What it has to do with our zoning,
Okay.
it has to do with the neighbors that spoke about the application and their concerns, just like our concerns of the stormwater. Seems to me the concern was they were like dogs hunting last night. They were trying to grasp what they could do to protect those homes, but they were left with a lack of substance in order to make that call. Some of them decided that the character of the neighborhood was being changed because of more. But in the protection of those other homeowners, we left them out on a limb and basically discarded them with no protections. So as the town, I look at it as we're willing to allow more, but we're not willing to protect the homes that are there already. And in that sense, the reason that I use the big heavy trucks is because recently I went to a site that they asked me to come to, and they said, "John, the beach is washed out." "Why is it washed out?" Well, so I did an investigation. I went there in the nighttime when it was raining, and I could see the tire ruts in the old road that was gaining all the water 300 feet down the road, going down this sunken driveway.
John, what does this have to do with?
It has a lot to do with it.
Okay.
And then it went down this person's yard and washed out the beach into the road. So what I'm saying here is we're not putting any protection in for the road, for the travel area, for the increase in traffic, and the protections to our lake, because we're basically discarded it just knowing that basically we're going to allow something to build. And what it has to do with the application is they were so close, and Sarah Silk made the final determination. It was a divided board, 2 and 2, and Sarah, God bless her, for not being the skunk at the lawn party, decided to go with the applicant because she knew that there were 3-bedroom or 3-story units built on other lakes, and this was going to be fitting into the neighborhood because it was a home. We left no protection. And our protection as a planning board should come down to what are we going to do to protect those neighbors where their road already exists. That's what it means.
Okay, well, maybe Tavis can answer that, but I mean, we did just adopt subdivision regulations that would include new roads. Those are the ones that we would have control over now.
So I was thinking about that. So with those new regulations, we can't even think about the new regulations applied to the old roads because we're not doing it.
Right. They're existing.
Well, you really can't adopt new regulations and apply them to something that exists.
So to that point, I'm going to ask the planner, 670, RSA 676, 15, and 17, authorize the selectmen to issue the permits on this way. I was understanding from Tavis's description that
676, 16, and 17?
676, 15, and 17. I was under the impression, but this has no ability for the planning board to make any determination because they don't have jurisdiction. If you leave that out and say, okay, the town has adopted 175-55-1, in the absence of 676, 15, and 17, what does the ZBA have, because they were desperately seeking advice and consultation from the planning board side? They said right there at the meeting, the planning board has to do something so that the applicant doesn't have consternation coming. He was going around like a pinball machine there last night. I felt terrible for him. He shouldn't have to endure it.
Okay, could you please stick to what we can do with the zoning regs? So that's what you'd like to look at?
I would. I'd like a legal interpretation from legal counsel, Tavis, in writing, and have that back to us, and the chairman can follow up on it.
About what?
In the absence of the selectmen applying 676-16, because we've basically taken that out of the program.
676-16 is penalties for transferring lots in unapproved subdivisions. 676-15 is injunctive relief for somebody that starts a building or a structure without a permit. 676-17 is fines and penalties, second offense.
So there really isn't anything we can do.
I've got to suggest,
Well, 676, 15, 16, and 17 are basically how code enforcement works,
Oh,
not zoning.
okay, what,
Yes. Mike and I are going to work together to resolve this issue and bring it to
okay,
Tavis.
all right.
Okay, that sounds
Well,
good.
bring it to
I
the
do-
board.
Bring it to the board.
To that end, I do think it would be helpful for the planning board work group to start working on the shorefront regulations, because the predominance of these lots in the shorefront area where the stormwater regulations do not apply by design are where these instances come up. Another compounding issue for last night's case was the automotive conveyance to the property was not on the same property as the proposed structure. There was discussion both at the planning board yesterday and the zoning board last night about whether or not the applicant did himself any service by showing a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house
course he did.
instead of simply asking for a right to build a structure.
Of course.
But I'll
Okay,
leave that
so
there.
But as any good ZBA member worth her salt would have had as one of her first questions, exactly what sort of structure do you plan on building on this lot?
Single-family residence should have been the answer.
And then there would have been my question, how the footprint, number of bedrooms, because they would have been within our purview, and it would have evolved, it would have emerged, I beg your pardon.
One of the interesting things I will share with the planning board that came up last night was yet another
we
master
probably
plan.
really shouldn't be talking about the application last night.
It's over. It's not.
I know, but we're in an appeal period.
One of the things that came up last night was discussion of a master plan suggestion that regulations be developed to encourage waterfront properties, regardless of their application state, to further septic improvements for the betterment of the water bodies. That is something that could be, that is an action item that could come from the master plan and be included in updated regulations in the shorefront.
Well, for the purposes of comfort of the chairwoman, why don't John and I work on this together, meet you down at the downtown grill, and we'll just spend an hour or something having coffee and work up something, which we can then present to the board and the planner.
Okay, so and then Tavis will follow up.
Correct.
Okay. All right, anything else you want?
No, I think the board had a tough decision in front of them, and they were reaching out to the planning board to help them in the future, for sure.
Okay, all right. Okay, discussion of the inclusionary housing ordinance.
So this was carried over from the last meeting. It's a 3 or 4 page stapled document. Literally, the only change is on page 1, just below the middle of the page. Currently, the inclusionary zoning is only permitted in 3 zoning districts, so a potential change is to allow it in all districts. Another question I would have is the necessity of a special exception for inclusionary zoning. It's referenced in that same line, but all I recommended as a change for now was allowing the inclusionary in all zones. I did have a discussion with a couple of different actual and potential applicants because I had it in my mind at the bottom of page 2 that by increasing the density bonus or percentage of the units to qualify for bonus units, increasing those numbers. Functionally, the document that the town adopted is what the model, the state model for inclusionary language is. However, the designated percentage of affordable units and the bonus units are both at the bottom of their model language range. And the response from all applicants that have even attempted use of the inclusionary zone said increasing that number does not increase their likelihood of success. Because right now the market is such a place that it is almost fiscally impossible to meet the 100% of the area median income range to qualify. And that's just the low to moderate income. It actually gets much higher than that when you get down into the low income rental. So I'm not recommending any changes to those percentages because it's not as though if you add more density, they will come. It doesn't work that way when it comes to the inclusionary zone.
So walk us through the only change that you're proposing?
Well, the main change is to move from the 3 zones that we currently allow inclusionary is into all.
Right.
Then on the face of page 3 is what I consider 2 normal paragraphs and 1 smaller paragraph that was completely left out from the model regulations that I think might be beneficial for the board to consider, where a site plan or subdivision plan can mix affordable housing types and accumulate density bonuses to a maximum of 30%. So the model ordinance allows you to go beyond what's on table 1 in the bottom of page 2 up to a 30% increase in units, where somebody proposes a mix.
Okay, but which units now? Can you go over?
A site plan or subdivision plan can mix affordable housing types and accumulate density bonuses to a maximum equal to 30%, where municipal water and sewer.
Aren't you talking about changing this now? Is that what you're talking about? Okay.
The table is prescriptive.
Okay.
But where somebody would come, not installed by, but operated by. That would qualify areas outside the existing water and sewer area, remove some of the dependence on the RIB and the spray fields and all of that.
Can that be done in-house, or do we need a regulation to that effect?
Well,
this regulation would take care of
this regulation would need to allow it. What would have to happen is basically a public-private partnership and understanding between the town and said developer to establish that system.
And the town also has to agree to accepting.
Correct.
Yes.
If you build it to this standard and you can affirm through engineering and on-site inspections that you've built to that standard, the town is willing to X agreement over time. So anyway, the change, again, page 1 would be going to all zones, and then the bold language on the top of page 3. Other than that, it effectively remains the same. There is some bold further down on page 3. That's just cleaning up the previous misreferences.
In the second paragraph, bolded on the third page, are we likely to wind up weighting, W-E-I-G-H-T, weighting the housing type preferentially to the more profitable for the developer or not?
So when mixing affordable unit types, the designated affordable percentage for each individual affordable housing type may be less than that required in Table 1. So
Right.
somebody, I mean,
You're opening the door there, and then you're saying that bonus is proportioned to the actual percentage of blah, 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 blah. Is it possible that the individual is going to come up with the more profitable of the four categories to him? And wind
I
up
think
with
the intent of the paragraph is to encourage, to be so supportive of inclusionary that you have the ability to play with it so that the project actually pencils. I don't think the design was to say, well, we're going to do only low to moderate income. The board still has, I believe, as I read it through the first paragraph, the ability to say, no, if you're doing that, you don't get to put in 90% low to moderate and 1% low income and get a 30% bonus. I think those two paragraphs have to be taken together. So it's not saying the planning board.
Is that how you would administer them?
That is how I would be looking at a project and putting together a report to this board, and then this board would have to decide
Well, yeah,
if the mix warranted going to 30%.
So there would be different styles of house or different income.
It's basically different income levels,
Yeah.
right?
We'd have the
Okay,
final
yeah.
say. Okay.
Which is, functionally would have been very helpful to have these three paragraphs in when Harriman Hill went through.
Okay,
Or as the only example in town of,
okay, did you do it, I mean, this has been in place since whenever, 10 or 11,
right.
and it has never been used. So did you do a review to take out things or add something else that would make it other than the one we just went through? I mean, are there other obstacles in this ordinances?
In this ordinance, no, but we do have obstacles in several other ordinances that.
Yeah, I'm talking about this one, because nobody has used it. And so you think you've taken that out?
By opening it from, by removing it from only the village residential and residential with water and sewer to all zones, that opens up the
Yeah.
likelihood
Yeah,
quite a
okay.
bit.
Okay,
Then by adding those three paragraphs in, the board has the ability to go beyond the prescriptive table. Again, I had thought, obviously, if you offer them more, someone will do it. Usually, if you get more miles to the gallon, someone's going to go buy the car.
Well, you'll never know unless you try.
But
and
if
this is a
you,
good
but
try.
talking to the people that have tried to do inclusionary zoning projects since I've been here, even if we changed all the percentages from 15% low income to 20%, or even lowered it, and then gave a greater density bonus, the money is not there right now against the current market. But perhaps with those three additional paragraphs, someone would be able to do it. The other ordinance, I know we're trying to focus on this one, but the other ordinance that gets in the way of that is the limitation on 5 units per building.
yeah, right.
Those are inherently tied to a problem with inclusionary zoning.
Okay, and,
This is the first step.
yeah, right. Anybody have any concerns, or do you want Tavis to keep moving ahead with this?
So I wonder, given the last few things that we've seen, where they were trying to increase density, why don't we say this is our guideline? This is what you have to follow instead of,
Because until it's adopted, we can't go by that.
oh, it's completely not adopted yet.
This is all adopted except for the change to all and those three paragraphs.
Right, but why aren't we saying to people, instead of going to the ZBA and getting a variance, just use this?
This doesn't change the base density restriction of each zone.
No, but if you have 24 units allowed and you
There are
add
probably
30%, that
probably
would be
4
32.
parcels in town that could support 24 units.
But I mean, we've just seen one or two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think the first step is to move this on to public hearing.
Well,
If you think this is in final form.
yeah.
It's close to final form. I
that's
don't
what
think
I'm
it would
trying
hurt
to-
to have legal look at it to see if there's something else that I don't know has changed that needs to be.
Why don't we have them move it to legal?
I assume that the bolds down below for the numbers are just changes in numbers?
Yes, on the page 3, the 17533, toward the bottom half of that paragraph, the 17531 and 17532A are essentially de minimis changes to point to the correct sections now, yes.
Okay, Tavis, why don't you have the legal people look at this?
Okay.
Okay?
Does the board have any opinion under 17530 applicability right below E? Does the board still believe it is necessary, recommended, preferential to require a special exception to do inclusionary housing?
Where's this?
Yeah, can you please
Page
say-
1,
Page, okay.
middle of the page below paragraph sub E. Development in accordance with the provisions of this article is permitted as a special exception within all zoning districts as defined in the zoning ordinance.
What would be the problem, that they have to come before
Oh,
us and meet
okay.
the criteria? That's the issue?
No, the condition would be that would be yet another instance where site plan review and a special exception would be required for something we're trying to encourage people to do. Another way of asking that is, do you believe inclusionary zoning inherently triggers any of the special exception ask criteria to the degree that the special exception should be required?
And presumably, the alternative is to...
Site plan only.
Site plan only, not requiring a special exception, which would make it easier for people.
Correct.
Right. So,
Under ordinary circumstances, I really like to have the protections of a special exception in place, especially for a project where we will be thinking about a density bonus, an inclusionary zoning, and a considerable change to a neighborhood. The more eyes, the better. I'm not happy with it having to go before any ZBA, but I do like the protections of a special exception.
The reason I raised the question is it does beg the question is this the town is treating a different income group differently than a group of traditional apartments.
Well, we're talking about increasing density, though.
No, because I don't think even with these percentages, I don't think you can increase the base density of the zone. Because our regulations say the more restrictive apply.
Well, then they need to go to the ZBA for that base density increase anyway.
But then you've got,
They do two on the same night.
well, that would be another recommended change. Are the current densities appropriate, inappropriate, otherwise, when one also contemplates trying to encourage inclusionary zoning?
Hopefully, we're going to get past that when we redo our densities in our zoning ordinances anyway.
At this point, I don't even see the need to modify inclusionary zoning because it's already trumped by the other regulation. If you're held at 6 units per acre, you're held at 6 units per acre.
Yeah, but
If you're outside those two zones, you're held at 2 units per acre.
we still have this problem. We have, this has to be fixed at some stage. Whether or not it happens then or now, if we're here doing it now, why don't we fix it now so that it's ready to go when we fix the next set of problems? That would be my recommendation. As far as special exception is concerned,
I think the special exception should stay in.
you feel comfortable with it? More comfortable with it, I mean?
More comfortable with the
Keeping
whole
the
ordinance.
keeping special exception as
Well,
a
it's-
requirement?
Yes, I do.
It means going to the ZBA.
Right.
It can't hurt to give it a try.
Well, procedurally, I don't think anyone's, even if this is changed tomorrow, I don't think anyone's going to do it because the base zoning is self-limiting.
We've already heard that.
I-
But we're talking about, this is a potential gotcha.
Yep.
We'll never know if it's a real effective gotcha unless we put it in, see if anyone gets got.
And then go to a public hearing and see what we hear,
We
right?
can always remove it.
Yeah.
Leaving it in is the more cautious approach.
That's the safest way to do it. I'd
Everybody-
recommend this to legal.
Okay, well, yeah. I
And
think-
part of the request, with the board's permission, will be to discuss inclusionary zoning, similar to lots with no frontage. That section of regulations has a very clear set of guidelines for the special exception. So it's the traditional special exception criteria plus 3 or 4 others. It might be helpful to guide the ZBA, because what often ends up happening is both boards start looking at the same things from a different light, and it gets confusing, particularly for the applicant.
So the ZBA was happy with our guidance last we offered?
I can't speak to whether they were happy with the guidance
Yeah.
or not, but they read it into the record
They
and they
read it
used
into
it in
the
their
record.
deliberations.
Then fine.
Okay, so you're thinking of adding something to this with the special exception?
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, the
okay.
concept would be, would an applicant need to fill out the special exception form per se, or look
Would-
at it as a special exception with the following criteria? Similarly, this board yesterday said, well, it doesn't really say what the planning board is
Right.
to comment on, so we're
Right.
going to comment on
Yeah, everything.
Whatever we
everything.
Yeah,
want.
right.
So I want to make sure the regulations that the town adopts and moves forward are what the town actually wants to move forward, so people aren't left. I felt last night the ZBA was speculating to a degree on where they were supposed to, is it the design of the house? Is it to give a permit or not give a permit? Is it this, or is it all of it?
Okay, so
that's a-
that's good
So-
guidance then.
That's a
Oh,
problem
okay.
inherent with the ZBA, structure, period. That's how it was designed,
Okay,
to not
so,
have guidelines.
okay, so you're going to pass this by the attorney
Yes,
with some added changes?
potentially, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Is there some format where we could take out the language special exception and add a list of similar criteria to site plan for?
Absolutely, you could turn it into a
Yeah.
conditional use with prescription, just the way you do with accessory dwelling units.
Would just simplify the process for the applicant.
Simplifies the process for the applicant, but what I'm hearing tonight is the general comfort level of the public having 14 people look at it than 7.
I will change my opinion on the strength of what Vaughn suggested. I'd be happy to see this as a conditional use permit rather than a special exception, keep it in-house.
I will ask legal what the ramifications are one way or the other.
Good.
Okay.
And
good.
can we put some of the language from the special exception criteria that is helpful to this in with our conditional permit application?
Generally speaking, the statutes on conditional use permits and special exceptions are very similar. It's all about,
Who hears it?
well, it's about who hears it, but the intent is the neighborhood protection. Is this something that is atypical for this neighborhood, this zone, this street, if you will?
By nature, it will be.
So would you add the same conditions if it goes to the planning board?
I think the recommendations would be very similar, yes.
Yeah, okay.
If I were asked to draft them for a conditional use permit, I think they would look very similar to those that I would draft for a special exception.
Okay.
Yeah.
So everybody, will you give this some thought, so when it comes back, we can have a discussion about it?
Absolutely.
Okay. Right. Okay, let's see. Accessory apartments. Yep, accessory dwelling.
We don't want to do the density?
Okay. Accessory dwelling unit.
You don't want to do density update from council?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
No,
Yes.
I can go in any order, I just didn't know.
No, that's okay.
So at the last planning board meeting, there was a presentation of a project that I perceive the board to be generally very supportive of in concept, with a manufactured housing park and 2 multifamily dwelling structures. what became confusing in the regulations is that in that particular instance, we have the manufactured housing overlay that has certain prescription on base lot size. We have a section of multifamily language that provides a density for multifamily units in certain zones. And we have a conservation subdivision regulation that applies to all subdivisions of lands of certain parcels based on their minimum lot size. What does that mean? They all apply. So if someone were proposing a multifamily structure in the residential district, there is an ordinance that addresses that. But in the case of a manufactured housing park, 50 units, any number of units over 3, or 3 or more units, has to be in one structure. It can't be 50 single-family units on one parcel. 50 single-family units on one parcel does not multifamily make by our definition. So the multifamily section is out. So in order to consider a project of that nature, because it's in the manufactured housing overlay district and manufactured housing was proposed, the manufactured housing overlay district language rules. In that case, every single-family home has to be on a lot as prescribed by the base zoning district. In that case, everyone needs to be on a 1-acre lot with 100 feet of frontage. That completely disallows a manufactured housing park under the traditional model where someone simply owns the unit and then there's common land under it. Then we come into then we also have to apply the conservation subdivision because they were starting with lots after the boundary line adjustment that would be in the neighborhood of 50 acres, would support the density that was proposed, but for the conservation subdivision rules and the manufactured housing overlay. What the conservation subdivision rules require someone to do is to take the gross acreage, subtract out all sensitive lands. From what is then left, subtract 20% for roadway construction. Then you divide the remainder by the manufactured housing overlay minimum lot size. So it does not allow the planning board to allow a difference in road design, even porous pavement for that matter. Somebody has to plan around building 22 feet of asphalt with 2-foot shoulders on either side and a ditch line 18 feet from center line of road. That, to me, goes against where this board has been trying to go by decreasing impervious surface, increasing infiltration, and you don't have a regulation, even under the guise of conservation subdivision, that allows you to be conservative, if you will, of natural resources and space. The conservation subdivision, contrary to its title, requires you to take out 20% for roads and discourages somebody from a road of a lesser standard or of a different design to reduce, you pick it, impervious surface, carbon footprint, cluster development designs, et cetera. So all of those apply. So functionally speaking, the design that generally the planning board showed, I'll say conceptual support for, cannot move forward under the current regulations. So that applicant happens to be going to TRC tomorrow and is already preparing to get a denial letter from me so that they can put 6 variance requests together. With that, there are, I believe, ways to achieve the intent of the current conservation subdivision regulation. The board would need to decide and have a public hearing on whether the intent is to discourage density or allow the existing permitted base zone density, but in a smaller footprint, which I understand from some of you was the intent. But when you get into conservation subdivision, it's also unclear what sensitive lands you take out. Do you take out wetland proper? Do you take out wetland plus buffer? Do you take out wetland plus buffer plus setback? And then do you take out 20% from the remainder? Keep in mind the Wetlands Conservation Overlay District lets you have roadways and driveways in the setback, but not the buffer to a wetland.
Yeah,
This is a lot to hear all at once. That's why it's in the bullet points for how procedurally the regulations have to be applied, as suggested by council. I would recommend striking the manufactured housing overlay district as currently written. If the board, because what it's saying is you're in a
Which one, I'm sorry?
manufactured housing overlay district.
Okay, yeah.
Because all the manufactured housing overlay district is saying is meet the base zone lot size and put a manufactured house on it. I don't think that was the board's intent with that overlay.
Not sure about that, but it certainly is the effect.
And I think the board has talked about revamping conservation subdivision from the get-go. I think the goal was appropriate, 50-foot buffer, don't let them count sensitive lands for density, don't do all of that. But where site plan and other regulations encourage low-impact design, we have a conservation subdivision, ironically named, that defeats that intent. And as I showed you almost a year ago, you end up with more net open space doing a traditional subdivision than you do with the conservation subdivision as currently written.
So when they had the boundary line that they were wavering on how far they were going to go, if they moved that to a further out or eliminated it totally, would that help them?
No, if you take 50 acres and you remove 30% sensitive lands and then you remove 20% of the remainder and then divide the rest by the base zoning district, you end up with essentially 26 lots on 50 acres. Under a traditional subdivision, you'd be allowed effectively 50, minus whatever the road system was in there. But under a traditional subdivision, you have the ability to modify the roadway standards.
So what's your recommendation for the manufactured housing overlay district? Abandon it or make it more realistic for the actual usage?
I need to dig into why the town adopted the manufactured housing overlay district. I have a feeling it followed shortly after the statute that said you cannot prevent manufactured housing in your community.
Yeah, it was designed to make one acre lot minimums.
It was designed to what?
For 1 acre lot minimums.
Correct. Most manufactured housing parks do not have 1 acre minimums.
Why it was designed for 1 acre minimums.
Okay.
So clearly there's a problem there.
Well, yes or no. One of the things that Wolfeboro is starting to see more of, believe it or not, is modular homes. Many modular homes look just like manufactured homes. The only difference is the steel chassis underneath a manufactured home. So by simply changing the nomenclature to modular homes, you now have much more flexibility under the subdivision regulations than you do under the manufactured housing overlay. That might be fine. If the goal is that manufactured homes have to be on 1 acre, that's fine and there's no change needed.
But that seems self-defeating, doesn't it?
Right.
When the units in Birch Hill Estates are pushing $360,000, $370,000, it seems that the austere of manufactured is not what it used to be, perhaps. It's very hard to, when communities started regulating out manufactured homes, it was the typical aluminum tuna can that looked like it belonged in a campground more than a community. You can't get those anymore. They're not allowed to build those anymore.
Or are you looking for a commission from this board to redo both of these?
I just want to, if I'm going to be tasked with looking at manufactured housing, I want to be very clear from the board what guidance the board is giving.
I think the board, well, I can't speak for the board, but I'll speak for myself. I would be looking to my planner for that kind of guidance,
Right.
seeing as how he is in the business and I'm not.
I can do that. I'm guessing that the 1 acre minimum was to be almost preventative of manufactured housing, which is then completely countered by the size radius of the manufactured housing overlay district.
Isn't it really irrelevant why it was fixed upon? Isn't the really relevant question is what is appropriate for today?
We can do that. I will do that and come back with a recommendation.
So,
I would also like I will come back with a revision to conservation subdivision as well.
okay, well, you did give us a document on conservation subdivision.
I did. It's an open space cluster subdivision model,
Right.
which for what it's worth, starts out with a 50-foot buffer, removing sensitive lands, looking at a net density count, et cetera. It does not prescribe taking out any percentage of land
Okay.
for roads.
Yeah, all right.
And it allows the planning board a lot of ability to consider alternative road styles. What it doesn't do is bridge the gap for someone that wants to do an alternative road style as a town road. That's something that would involve selectmen and other departments, but we can factor that in.
But that wasn't part of this application.
I'm not talking about any application.
Or a proposal. We listened to a proposal.
There was a conceptual non-binding, yes.
So with that said.
That proposal had a less than town standard size road in it.
That wasn't, well, that's what I was getting at. The proposal wasn't to make it a town road.
Correct.
Is there a fundamental difference in the definition between manufactured housing and modular houses?
Yes, a manufactured unit has a steel chassis underneath it.
So what I was seeing in the plan that was presented last time, they were not steel chassis underneath.
They were manufactured homes, yes.
Which did have
Yes.
steel chassis.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. They would come on a tractor trailer and be dropped off by a crane, probably.
If not backed into place and tires removed, yes.
Yeah.
But they're a permanent structure, they're not on a chassis.
Correct. That's why the manufactured housing overlay, it was written when it was the 1970s aluminum box.
Right.
And people put the fancy skirting around it to hide the wheels.
Right, but this is not the picture that I had when I was looking at what they presented.
Correct. Because
And-
today's
and-
manufactured home doesn't look like that.
And I will actually say that my house came on a truck.
Oh, there's a brand new 4,800 square foot home that was just
On
built.
Crescent Lake?
No, right down, was it Millwood Place?
Yeah. It's on Crescent.
Oh, on Cre- yeah.
Crescent Lake. Yeah, I mean, and so, it's not the way it used to be. It's not the aluminum tube.
So anyway, I will work on these two and come back with some
okay,
recommendations.
that-
I'm
yeah.
realizing it's 9 o'clock. I'll
Yeah,
come
right,
back with-
because yes, I agree with Mike that.
Could you resend the
We can
conservation
react.
subdivision?
Okay, all right.
I can be brief with the next one too, if you'd like.
Okay, then. Okay, accessory
So
dwelling.
what you have in your packet says for discussion only at the top. This is exactly the same thing I brought to the last meeting, but I was asked to take out the strike-through text and the replacements. This is what it would look like. Again, this is simply saying attached or within ADUs are permitted by right, subject to the conditions that everyone's used to. It puts in a provision for a conditional use permit for a detached accessory dwelling, and it has some additional recommended conditions of approval for a detached accessory dwelling. I understand there was a lot of talk about this at the last meeting. Your very own Mike Hodder did some neighborhood comparisons. You have the suggestions for detached ADUs from nearby towns. The only other only thing I'll add on that is basically between these two things, perhaps at the next meeting after the board reviews the nearby towns information, there'd be a discussion about putting together the forum that the board talked about at the last meeting to see what the public response was to detached.
Right.
It's about as brief as I can make that.
Okay, so everybody's going to take a look at this and see if it makes some sense. Is there anything that we can put in this regulation that, so that they wouldn't become short-term rentals?
What I did, what I recommended at the last meeting, at the bottom of that first page, was a condition that would apply to attached or detached.
Yeah, that's right.
Because
Yes,
neither the
right.
single-family home nor the ADU shall be used for short-term occupancy similar to that of a hotel or motel, which is doesn't modify the definition of single-family home or one-family dwelling that we have, but it's very similar to the language that was effective in working stiff. Again, before, not necessarily before the forum, but before it goes to public hearing, legal should look at this to see how the relevant changes at the state level in court cases affect that language. But remember, the state, when they allowed everyone to have an ADU, also prescribed that one of them was rental. That's an inherent connotation of rental, and many people in the public do not see the difference between a long-term rental or a short-term rental. And we have nothing to regulate it, so that's where that language came from.
Okay, well, so, I mean, this is going to go to Laura before we
Oh, yeah.
go much further.
That's what I was
She-
suggesting before public hearing, but they said not necessarily before the forum.
Yeah, right.
You want to
Okay.
hold a forum on whether we should have detached accessory dwelling units before we've even wrapped up what we're thinking about?
That's what the board discussion was
No,
at the
we-
last
We were
meeting.
going to have an ordinance in place. That's what,
And then take that to the
and take
forum.
that for the public to comment
This would go
on.
to the public forum
That-
for discussion.
That
Yeah,
plus
yes,
more.
once we all agree on it,
Yeah, once.
so that we can get an idea of, you know,
Okay, well, I'll turn that question around. What else would the board like to see in this that isn't here?
Why don't we let board members look at what nearby towns do regarding
That's-
detached ADUs?
right.
Come back and talk about it next time, thrash it out, and then incorporate whatever emerges
Right.
into that. And
That's what I thought we were
Yeah,
discussing.
okay, that's
then, well,
what we
then
were,
we're on the same. Yeah, wonderful.
that's what we were talking about, yeah, right.
Could I add one thing to that? Maybe the board, I've reached out to a lot of people in our town, asked them what they think. It's probably a good thing if our board brings the discussion up with other people and tries to get a consensus on what they think this would do, or beneficial or detrimental to their neighborhood.
We'll hold a public forum.
I know, but
Yeah.
it's just not, I mean, some of those people may not come to the forum, but you'll have their sentiment.
Well, once and if there's a date of the forum, I would anticipate the language going on the website so that people could comment if they couldn't attend the forum. Obviously, it's the nature of Wolfeboro. Once somebody finds it, it hits Facebook and the world comes out, and I would expect the comments to come in.
We could take a leaf from the playbook that we ran when we were
The
discussing
drive-through.
drive-throughs and hold a survey monkey. And
Yeah,
get like
that-
800 responses.
Yeah, that was kind of fun.
That was
Right.
remarkable. That was the most response we ever got.
I would
Yes,
expect
that's
nothing
right.
So,
Oh, okay, Mike, would you mind talking about the bill here from
What,
Jeff
249?
Bradley? Yeah,
All
right.
right, I will not detain you more than I need to get a
Okay,
few
this
words
is
out.
Senate Bill
Just
249.
move the mic closer.
Jeb, thank you. Jeb Bradley's Senate Bill 249, which denies the towns the ability to zone regarding short-term rentals, gives them only the ability to register them and then to inspect them subsequently for safety and health, is now in the House and is being considered by the Governmental Affairs Committee, whose clerk is John McDonald, our own representative, who is aware of the issue. And they have until, I think it's the end of this month, to report the bill out with their changes. It then goes to a committee of conference, where the Senate and the House sit down and try to thrash out a bill that is agreeable to both bodies, at which point a vote will be held, and it will go to the governor for signature. I don't think it's going to come out of the House looking like it did going into the House. It's going to have substantial changes if it isn't ruled inexpedient to legislate. And that's where we stand.
So that's what we're up against.
Yeah,
Right.
that's it.
Okay, all right.
Stay
Okay.
tuned.
Yeah, okay, and just a sec. Okay, public comment. Suzanne, did you have anything? Okay. All right, other business? Go, John, you, oh, yeah, okay, all right. You had something else. Okay, then, anybody have anything else before we do the minutes for March 15th? Okay. Anybody have any issues with the?
Move to approve?
Okay. Second, somebody want to
Second
make
that.
a second? Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And opposed? Oh, okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, all right, all in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you very much, folks.